Hi and welcome to another tutorial on a more specific package, a more specific exercise that I apply into my Web 2 course, which is something called sexy graphs. So we're going to build a sexy graph without doing much of the heavy lifting. We will leave that to the package called Chart.js. So if you go to Chart.js.org, you will see lots of examples. There, of course, are other packages, but this one is very easy to start with. Now, a couple of samples that we will see here. We have vertical bar chart, horizontal bar chart, stack charts. Let me see what we are going to use. I assume it is a vertical bar chart if we look at the example we are given here. We are going to build a hype levels for courses chart to see which courses are most interesting for us this year. Now, of course, this is data. Data comes from somewhere. So how do we prep for this? First of all, you need an index.html page with some very basic elements. We will fill it up as we go. And then we need some data. The data for students is retrievable from Canvas itself, from the environment. For others who are doing this on their own, you can create a data.json file and just type these things over and just apply your own courses. These are the ones I've given in the past, and I'm going to give in the future. So we have a JSON object, student, my name, my courses, which is an array, and then I think 6 courses with each a name and a hype level. All right, so pause here, take some stuff over, so you have your data or get it from Canvas. Of course, before we start, we know we need to import the bar chart. We are going to do this the way we are taught, namely with, of course, an npm project and Webpack. So let's get started with the setup. Open the integrated terminal, npm init -y. We're going to install chart.js. Let me check where my documentation is. It's npm. Again, use of documentation is very important. So npm install chart.js. We're going to immediately add Webpack and Webpack-CLI. We'll let that install. Once that is done, I'm going to build my structure. So we have our dist folder. We have our source folder. My source folder will have a file called index.js. My index goes into my dist folder, and I am going to create a webpack.config.js just in case. And I'm going to quickly go to the site of Webpack and actually get that from there. I can also copy it from a different project, but this is the quickest and easiest way to do that. I'm gonna add the mode to development. So if this is all Chinese for you, I was just look at my tutorial on Webpack. And the second one is watch true, so we can let everything build automatically without me doing anything. The data folder I'm going to import into the dist folder because we need that there. Dist should be your folder with the site as a whole, and you would not need extra files from outside of that folder. So with that in mind, I will add a script as well to my package.json. So this is basically doing everything we've learned up until now. We'll add a build script that just says Webpack. And we run npm run build, and that should get things going. And we're done. We have a main.js, very, very cool. And we can include this here. So we are ready to go. So this was, of course, I've done this multiple times. This should be as a reflex for you as well. Now, charts. Before we can even start, we just need a basic chart. We need to go to the documentation itself. So if I go to the documentation, we'll open it a bit here. So you have configuration, you have a setup, and you have actions. The actions I don't need. I think these are the actions. We don't need those for us. But if we go to home and we go to creating a chart, it's easy to get started. Well, we'll see about that. We need a canvas on our web page. So, okay, let's build a canvas. I'm going to place something called a container around it because I am working with Bootstrap. So you don't need to do that, of course. It's div with the we're just gonna add something called content, and the class is gonna be called the call MD6. 6 should be fine. Done. If you don't use Bootstrap, you don't need to do this, of course. This is my canvas. And what else do we need? I think this is okay. And then, of course, the script itself this is an example script. We're going to place that in our index.js. Let me check. This will be new chart, so we're going to be importing chart. All right, I'm back after some Googling and some checking. I was wrong in the installation process, so this is something you will need to learn as well when each package will behave differently. So it was required to, if you use a specific scale, then you need to import it and you need to register it. Now, I didn't want to have all this stuff in my project. We could do with require as well. That will bring some other issues with it. But at the bottom, it says there's a separate path to do just the above in one line and just import everything. And that is import chart from Chart.js/auto. So I did that. Let's delete this line and then the rest of the code. And you see we have a very default chart that we can edit as we go. So we're good to go now. How do we integrate it? Well, let's take a look at what the bar chart is and how we work with it. The first step would be to get the context. Now the context is that canvas to draw upon. So you have the HTML, this is the canvas. If you have another ID, of course you need to select a different ID here as well. We get the 2D context and then we have a couple of things. We have the data, let's minimize that. We have the type of chart, this is a bar chart. So that means that if we go to samples and your vertical bar chart, you have this setup and this documentation to read. The second thing is the data. We'll take a look at that in a second. And then some options. So, okay, begins at 0 should be able to start from true. You can do some other stuff with that as well. Now, we are going to check what is needed. The data is the most important thing. We have labels. As you might see, the labels are the bottom ones. So if we have 6 data sets, we have 6 labels. You can build this dynamically, which is what we are going to do. And the data set itself has the number of votes is the thing we're going to have here. The data itself, the numbers, and your scale should automatically adjust with that. And background color and border color. Background color is the one in the middle of the bar, and then the border color is a bit of a thicker line. You can customize this with RGB values as much as you want. I think we're going to leave this as is, and now we can build our data. So the first step, getting our data inside the exercise. All right, so there are multiple ways of getting our data inside. We can import it, but for the sake of the exercises in the classrooms, I will be using just a fetch request. So within a sync function. So if we have a sync, get data, then later if this is represented on an API, we can easily work with that as well. Equals await fetch, and I am going to use path, and then of course return await and reform this I can do some built-in error checking, but for now, we don't need that. So get data dot then. And then we'll have a result. And let's see now if we can get the data itself before we continue. Of course, we will do the error log as well in case something goes wrong. So, as you might see already, I am getting my data. I get an object with courses and my student name. Perfect. Now I can start working with it. Before we can just pull this and shoot this inside the chart, we actually have to analyze that data first. So build chart, we get this, and I think it might be easier if we place everything for the building inside a function so that the moment this is done, we can actually call build chart. Build chart with the result. Voila, and otherwise we error the log. So build chart, dataset, and we're done. Good. Now we are prepping the data for use inside the chart. Now we need labels. We need, I think I have 6 one. So we can use the same setup here. There's a complex version of this exercise where you don't know how many entries you're going to have, and then you're going to have to build the labels dynamically as well. So it's just some clever use of for each loops and then building some arrays. So in this case, I'm going to prep some data that we are going to be inputting in here. Let's say at the end, we build our chart. Let's see. Again, use comments for later use. Build the chart. And in the first, we're going to prep the data. Prep the data. That's the first thing we're going to do. So we can already change this to hype levels for, and we can even use my name because my name is in the result dataset. So let's do backticks and use $ dataset dot, and I think it's called student. Hype levels for my data. So as you can see, we have our data set. Perfect. Now the data itself and the labels will need to be built up. So as you can see, this is dynamic. The numbers come from the JSON file, and this is dynamic. So we're going to build our label set. Label set, an array, and we're going to build our data set. Data set is bad term. Let's just call it data. And this call data set to keep consistent. Okay, data set is also an empty array. So we're going to build this with a very easy for each loop. So we know in our data, if we look at the data itself, we know that we have something called courses, an array, and a name and a hype level. The hype goes in our data set. The name goes in our label set. Let's go. So data dot courses dot for each let me check. Let's call it course because it is a course. And then what do we do each time it is in here? So we are going to push the element, the hype level, into our data set, and we're going to push the name in our label set. So label set dot push course.name. Now we have the first label, and dataset dot push. We have the course.hype. Course.hype. Okay. Perfect. we have these two sets. Now let's see if we just replace this array with the label set. The label set is not yet ready. Let me check. Label set and then for each, and then the data set is here. Okay, it needed some updating, but we are there. I think it needs again some updating. Voila, now we have the actual data. So we have our course names at the bottom. We have our numbers at the top, so the y-axis, and now we see all the data itself. Let's compare it to the data file. So Web Advanced should be at level 10. Web Advanced 10, perfect. Integration project at a 1. Okay. Digitale geletterdheid, which is a course I teach in digital teaching, at a 9, which is the last one. So again, we have cleared our exercise. We have imported a chart library, learned how to work with it, and then keep going with it. Now, I would just want to push towards the more complex exercise, because this was quite easy. We only needed to change 2 arrays. But what if you don't know how many data you have, how many entries you have here? How do you build that dynamically? How do you make sure the labels and the data are the same? How do you make sure that everything has a unique color? All of that. So in the complex data set, this is Dungeons and Dragons data. Of course, I think this is about 4,000 lines of, so lots more data. Now, the fun thing is these are all spells. Take those spells. Some of them have levels. Most of them have levels. First to 9, and then cantrips. Cantrips are 0 level. And build a chart that tells you how many spells there are per level. So I think that's a very cool exercise to do. You can find this data online, or of course, if you are a student, at the Canvas course as well. I would say good luck, have fun, and I'll see you in the next video.